You know what? We're going live here in the middle of the week. What's the occasion, Kurt? What are we doing here?
I don't know. It's got to be something special. That's all I know.
Gotta
I
be
don't know
something
what it is.
special.
I heard something about some power platform BI stuff. What are they talking about? What is that? Power BI? Is that it?
Yeah. We got a special guest with us, Erin Angela. Erin, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you know about Power BI, what your background is. We want to hear all about you because my viewers like, okay, well, who's this Erin person, and why should I listen to her? What she's done? So tell us all about you.
Oh, thank you, Darren. I appreciate the setup and introduction. I'm happy to be here with you and Kurt today. So I am a Power BI user, probably an advocate for Power BI for sure. And I have a background from Jacksonville, Florida. So I put a couple pictures because I'm a very visual person. And really, my heartbeat is data storytelling for executives. That's typically where I will spend my time. And it's because I have a background in business journalism. So I have a picture here of Jacksonville, Florida. It's where I got my start. I was in a high rise early in my career, getting started in big data business research. And I was the research director for the Jacksonville Business Journal. So it really launched me and got me exposure to how do executives think. We covered 16 industries. And from there, I got connected with the guys at Pragmatic Works. So if you look at the picture, there's a river, and you go down the river a little bit to the next county. And that's where I met folks like Brian Knight and Devin Knight, great team at Pragmatic Works who brought me into the world of SQL and big data. And so that's how I cut my teeth with Power BI. It was really being a trainer and then a consultant for a while. And I went to the beach a lot, right? I love Jacksonville, Florida, but I had a big life change. So I ended up getting recruited into mining. Yes, I was so fortunate to join the mining industry at just the right time. They were looking for.
Are you talking about data mining by
No,
chance?
I mean like real mining, gold mining. That's I grinning just to think about it. But there's all kinds of mining: copper mining, silver, um, rare metals, base metals, hard rock, soft rock, you name it. I've got the.
We're talking about digging in the dirt mining, right? That's
Yes,
what you're talking about here.
that's right, just
Ah,
like this picture. And so what happened at the pivotal point in history was a joint venture between Barrick Gold and Newmont, and they created what's known as Nevada Gold Mines. And Nevada Gold Mines is the world's largest gold producing complex in the world. And they had to pull together systems across, if you can imagine, in the high desert, it's you think of Vegas when you're in Nevada, but where I'm at is hours away from the nearest city. So 6 hours of driving will take you from one end of Nevada gold mines to the other across I-80. And then you have to go north and south a couple hours to get to the different mines. And so it's this huge place. And they had to pull together all these systems. And they wanted to look at it from what's happening, right? What's happening with our open pits? They were combining resources from people, equipment, facilities, you name it, roads, you name it, health systems, you name it, they're combining it. And so we needed to get this together, and there were teams pulling it together in the back end. And they ended up recruiting me for data storytelling because Power BI was their choice at that time, and it still is. And I'm really proud of them for all their work. I have pictures here to show, not tell. So you can
yeah,
see
please do.
dashboards, and there's an open pit on the left side. This is what it looks like. I worked hard to actually create these graphics and play around and try to get a picture. I mean, you're never going to see executives sitting at the edge of a pit in their suits. That's not safe. You're going to, that's, just to illustrate that, this is really how it is, though. People want to know what's happening, not just in real time, in lag time, in trending time, time intelligence, over the quarter, over the year, what happened last week, what is our projection for next week for production. And there's many teams working together. And like I said, many different systems. So the goal is to get a bird's eye view on that, and then to be able to drill into the details where there's problems or maybe even great things happening in the business. But in order for them to make decisions, they have to be able to see what's happening in the business. And so it's vitally important, and this is my passion, is to get that information really in front of the right folks and to train people to do it themselves. I do not want people to be dependent on me as a consultant. I want to build up their resources so they know how to manage their data effectively and reporting, right? And pull in other experts who support that. Does that kind
That
of make sense? Like that's my background basically.
that goes along with Kurt and I's philosophy here. We don't want to hand someone a fish. We want to teach them how to fish, and they're
Yes.
better off for it.
Yeah, I get fired up for empowering people. It's all about empowering
Mm,
people.
I love that. That's exactly right. I couldn't agree more. And I do want to say how I do feel so privileged, within mining. I say it's the bluest of the blue collar and the whitest of the white. I feel privileged to work with so many amazing people. And then within Microsoft's world, right, years now, I think we had this conversation last year, like 15 years ago, we were looking at the horizon of these citizen tools, so-called citizen tools, emerging.
Yeah.
And how can we get the businesses acting like developers and managing more? And we're here. We're in a really cool time and age to be part
Yeah,
of multiple intersections.
I said it would never work. I remember 15 years ago
You
saying this
did?
will never
You
work.
were
Yeah.
you were a doubter.
Yeah, I
Ooh,
was one of those
okay.
people that was poo-pooing the whole thing. This will never work.
Oh, that's so funny. So I was green and I was idealistic and I was with Brian. I was with the Knight brothers and I thought for sure everything was going to work. So I'm like, yeah, promoting it, which I still appreciate. I think you get real world experience and it does temper your excitement about the promises made, right? Like that's a real thing. It data's not ideal. Like it's never ideal.
Yeah, and isn't that the truth?
It's
Right?
never easy. That's my favorite saying. It's never easy.
Never easy.
Because once you realize that, once you say it's never easy and you tell yourself that, then you're okay. You go in there with that expectation that it's not going to be easy.
Yes. You're so right. See, I actually had to do that today because I'll give kudos to Darren and to you for really pushing me and saying, hey, even if you don't feel quite ready, like I'm launching as a young entrepreneur now. I no longer work as an employee. I want to consult and train and expand, right? And you guys really encouraged me. Like I had this dream to produce content and help that vision of empowering other folks and through my lens, obviously, but partnering with you guys. And I just got to thinking like I need to start before I'm ready.
Right.
In some ways we all have to.
That's right. And I just want to say that, I sit here and think the same thing. I can't go do this. I'm not special. I can't do this. But guess what? We aren't special. What we're saying, what we're talking about is special. That's what we care about.
Right? I think you're special too. I'm a feeler. So I'm going to be like, no, Kurt, you're special. Everyone is special. Like, but you're right. You're right.
We connected over
here. Like, you're right. Yeah.
We connected over to LinkedIn, and I could just tell right away. I don't know if you ever studied Myers personality types, but me and Kurt were intuitive feelers, and I would suspect maybe you are too. You just had an energy and charisma about you, and you mentioned that you started talking about your Power BI experience, and I was like, oh man, I so want to get you on one of these live streams. So,
thank you. What a privilege. What a privilege. Thank you. And I think what I want to emphasize today, or what I'd love to do, is introduce you to Power BI. I'm biased towards the storytelling side, but I was trying to think of the development side even more so. Fortunately, I'm working as a technical editor on a book right now, and it's the essential guide to M code, right? Like it's the Power Query ultimate guide, and it's thick and it's big, and I'm testing, and I'm getting really
practical passionate. Guide to what?
It's gonna come out soon. It's the first edition. I'm proud of the writers. They're doing hard work. It's gonna be called the Essential Guide to M Query, I believe, or M Code. Not M Query, sorry, it's M Code. And the Essential Guide to the Power Query Editor to M Code. And I don't know if they're still playing with the title a little bit, but it's got some powerhouse writers. I'm gonna definitely promote this video and tell them about, and mention that. But spending all this time now, and the more on the developer side and doing all the technical editing, is really, even other experienced people who are editing in the documents are going, wow. I'm seeing comments where people, it's like you're sharing all this knowledge and you're like, this is hardcore stuff. Like this isn't just, and I think storytelling is significant because it's where you're interfacing with the humans that have the money and that are running the business. And that's where it comes. We don't exist for ourselves, right? We exist many times to serve business missions, and it's making money and saving money. But I think that it's so important to, talk about this is not just a storytelling tool. It's not just a visualization tool. I'm really impressed the more I'm learning about the query folding and the effects, and the more I'm seeing the Microsoft Fabric come out and develop, and where things have gone with the data flows. And so I'm excited to tell you guys
Could
more, to
you
show you
tell
more.
me? Could you tell me what
Yeah.
Microsoft Fabric is? What it's all about? I've tried to watch a few videos, some marketing stuff, and it looks like it has to do with data.
It does definitely have to do with data. And I am not a sales or marketing person, so I'm not going to sound as polished as they will. But my nuts and bolts of it is, this is where we've come now. This Fabric is what we're using to describe the how the data is coming together within the Azure universe. That's the back end of the Power BI service, where this Power BI service features and the Power Query Editor and all of that reusable code is now being stored in a lake, and all of that is reusable by business users. Like previously, you really would have to wait a long time, all the time, for developers to do all of your work and then to make it packaged so it was reusable, scalable. And now this Fabric is allowing that two-way push and pull between developers and citizens, which it had before with data flows. But now you're really seeing it scale, and it's almost seamless because there's integration with the tools. And that's, I think, going to keep developing with Power Apps this year. I think is going to be huge with Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate. I'm learning too. I probably, like I said, I didn't necessarily give a polished answer, but it's the lake house right behind. Like it's what they're using and what they're calling to seamlessly pull it all together. It's how those systems on the back end are weaved together now and fully integrated. So whether you're on the business side or the IT or development side, more strongly, you can share.
So if I'm allowed just to go ahead and interrupt and ask a question, just to make sure that I'm getting my mind wrapped around it.
Yeah.
So the way, it's kind of the way I understand machine learning to work, right? So you have this Internet of Things sitting out there, and if somebody writes a function for a microwave, that function goes up into this Internet of Things, this library, this neural library. And is that what this Fabric is? It's kind of like a neural library, whereas like if Darren writes a function that works in Power Apps, then you're over here in Power BI, and maybe you can use that function in Power BI to do something with
like
it.
calling.
Right?
That's I think that's a decent way to look at it for sure. Okay. And it's because you're packaging up the elements, but it's almost even bigger than that, because you're really, like, when you look at that, we used to have just blob storage, right? And then it was really separated from your semantic layer. And then they really started to work together to pull that to integrate. So you had your file system storing your data, but then all that transformation code, all those calculations, all the things you're talking about, those functions, those calls, potentially the package itself and its various pieces, front, back end, like those are all now packaged up so they can be shared in between in various ways, of course, as it's evolving.
Wow. Okay.
And it's exciting because, for example, if you make a Power App and it's you've got your canvas ready, and I can embed that as a visual in my report, and I could collect information or whatnot through that app and then write back to a source system that's then going to update my report. And you want to use best practices, but they're making that type of stuff seamless. Or, for example, if I use the Power Query Editor to mash up a bunch of different data sources, clean them up, extracting, transforming, loading, it's all prepped and staged and ready. Now that becomes your data source. Now maybe you're the app developer and I've written reports, and we're able to collaborate on a single source of truth with agreed upon calculations, what they mean, the logic. It can't just be changed arbitrarily. I think that's part of, like, you look at that whole big picture of integration and trying to make it easy for companies to use as many tools as possible seamlessly. It's impressive to me how they've been able to package it up. I thought it would work, but I didn't know where it was going, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I like it.
As you describe what Fabric is, it sounds like what I thought of a data lake. And a data lake, if I'm not mistaken, you can have all kinds of data sources. You can have Excel spreadsheets, you could have SQL Server, you get maybe an Access database. I don't know. Is that true? That Fabric sort of like?
Yeah, let's
like
just
data
jump
lake?
right. You know what? It is there is a data lake. Like, that's exactly. So data Data Flows Gen 2 is the back end, and it was really sort of its own. It was its own. I don't want to say it's a component, but it was a little bit more siloed than it is now, and it is exactly what that. So going from a file, a more traditional file naming structure system, adding that semantic layer, storing it in a lake, making it accessible, integrating all of those different components. I'm trying to find, if I can, so I should be cognizant of my screen. Where there you are, where the connectors are, for example, so you can just kind of see Power BI, and like let's just look at some of this, right? And actually, I can show you more easily if I just go to powerbi.com and I start here. So if you were to go to say powerbi.com, like we're in a live thing, so let's start out in the service and let's talk about this. So the service is the web-based component of Power BI, and this is probably where you're getting the most interaction as a Power App user. If you haven't downloaded the desktop and you're not building reports yet, you may be seeing this type of a landing page or lead into it from your Power Apps landing page, right? And they're pretty similar in the sense you'll have a home, you'll have a create, you can start making reports in here. That used to be the case, but not in a robust way. Now you're able to connect, like you're saying. This fabric allows you to use all of your organization's work, your work that's been stored in a data lake, that's got all of the logic, all the code. You can start building from here. Previously, most of the development work would have been just in your desktop on your local machine. So that's an advantage point right there. But there's also tons and tons of connectors. I'm trying to think of like where you would see. It used to be like you go to a page that showed all the connectors. Maybe the easier way is just to open up the Power BI desktop and to start looking at sources.
Are those all the connectors that us Canvas Power Apps developers have and Power Automate users have? Those connectors, like we got about 1,000 of them?
Yeah, they should be. Yep, exactly. So that's exactly right. So those and you're hitting on the fabric. It's the same fabric. So, and not to say there aren't distinctions, because different data sources, obviously, they're structured, they behave differently. They may be more or less performant with the tools we're putting on top of them to produce apps, to produce reports. But 100%, I mean, that's the goal, is that there would be the exact same one-for-one integration. But you can see the common ones: Excel, text CSV, JSONs, right? Access databases, SQL databases, all different. And it starts to get very specific. And thankfully here you can kind of see on the side, they make it convenient. You can search by type. So I can see all of my Azure backend data sources, right? I can see online. And these are just the visible ones. If I want to set up, an API call, I can do that, right? Anything that you can set up custom, sky's the limit.
We have a video where Kurt showed us how to do custom connector to other APIs. So Kurt, maybe we could tie into that.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. Well, you know what? Why don't we, since we're already here and we say let's get data, why don't we do sort of a show and tell? Not just, I love talking about it, but maybe while we're talking about it, I could run you through a tour of Power BI so you get a sense of looking at the pieces and parts. And then, if we want, maybe you could test it out for yourself. What do you think about that?
Sounds great.
Yay. Okay. So if you're following along, I'm going to assume some people are, I'd like you to go to a web source. So if you guys want to follow along too, totally welcome to do so. I looked it up, but it's going to be fdic.gov. All right. And I know I have it pulled up. So if you go to fdic.gov and then search for failed banks. So I will say right now, and I give a shameless plug, I recommend, if you're new to Power BI, you want to start learning, go on YouTube. There's the guys in a cube. There's so many folks who are supportive and teaching many different examples. This example I'm pulling from, I was taught by Devin Knight. So you'll see it repeated. It's all over. It's YouTube. It's pretty straightforward. We call it the failed banks example to just kind of get going. So if you go to fdic.gov and look up failed banks.
So I'm on the website. Should I search for it there at the top?
Yep. Search fdic.gov and just search for failed banks. And actually, do you want to drive and I can watch and guide you too. That's another way to go for it, because then maybe the timing is better. I just joined Toastmasters and did my icebreaker, and one of my working things is timing, slowing down, pausing, because I get excited.
That was probably my biggest feedback when I started this YouTube channel is, did you talk too fast? You talk too fast. I'm like, really?
I know it's hard. And
that's the story of my life. And I just tell people, hey, you know what? Deal with it. That's what I
just put me at a slower speed. Usually you speed up, slow me down. Yeah.
What I found,
sometimes it affects your family. Like my granddad on the phone, I was like, oh gosh, I really need to slow down. He couldn't understand me. So
what I found that helped me is that I try to pause between my phrases. So even though I might talk fast, I give space for people to process what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's sort of helped me out. Maybe, I don't know. Oh,
absolutely.
We got our first comment. Do more content on Power Pages. And this is by somebody says, me with SharePoint. So this person's big into SharePoint, I would imagine. You plan to, but so this is what we're doing here. I'm an expert on Canvas Power Apps. Kurt's an expert on software development in general and databases, but these other topics I'm not an expert on. Power BI, the Fabric, and also Power Pages. I'm going to bring in experts like Erin here. So absolutely.
It's exciting. I think if we know what content people want to cover, we can cover SharePoint integration with Power BI. We could talk about publishing to SharePoint, pulling data from SharePoint. When is it to your advantage, disadvantage? There's so many details. It's almost hard to say, like, how do you cover in an hour an introduction, But we're doing it. Thank you for commenting, folks.
Yeah. I think our viewership here on this channel, we're Power Apps developers. And every day that goes by, we have this nagging suspicion that we should be knowing more about Power BI.
Oh,
so so if you think about us, like we're complete neophytes, or we're complete novices, or absolute beginners in Power BI, we're not foreign to the Power Platform, or data in general. But it's something that we always want to learn, but we've I don't know, for me it's difficult for some reason, but
I can understand that.
I'd love to create our first report here and say I've actually done one.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it together. So I think, is your screen sharing, or is that still mine? I feel like I snapped. Perfect. All right, so we're gonna create that first report. Let's do it. We're gonna make a nice, fun, pretty simple report. So right here, you can see that you've got this failed banks list. We're going to do a from web source. It's very straightforward. Up at the top on the right corner of the screen, actually, believe it or not, you see there's like this, it's a little hard to see your screen, but there should be like a CSV file. It's underneath those icons that are right there. So you've got the name. Yep, right click on that.
Right click.
Yep, right click. Go ahead and copy that link for me.
Okay.
And it may say something else, like copy URL, copy link, that kind of thing. And then open up Power BI if you haven't done it. And so while you're opening up Power BI, when I say that, what I mean is open up the Power BI desktop tool. So the Power BI is split into different components. You have the Power BI service, which is where we were online. And you could think of that as like a portal for publishing, sharing. There's a lot of features. Hopefully we'll cover it a little bit, but maybe not too much today, maybe next topic, because there's security, it gets really detailed, right? But the desktop is the developer tool, what you would think of where you're building these reports. And it is free for everybody. It's one of the reasons I like Power BI as a starting tool. There's amazing other tools out there. I'm agnostic in the sense of at the end, just give the business what they want, what they need. Ethically, all that. But Power BI is great because it's cost effective. If you're learning business intelligence and you want to get started, it's really quite user friendly, even for somebody who feels new or uncomfortable. And it's a natural fit for Excel users and PowerPoint users, anybody that uses Microsoft. So Darren, do you have your desktop open, right? I'd like you to go and get data. All right.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, should I log in with my M365 account?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go ahead and log in. All of your licenses are going to be tied and connected. To use Power BI to start, you can start with a free license. So it's great for
Okay.
learning, great for personal practice. You can't share under a free license. If you're looking into pricing, licensing, Microsoft lays all that out. Whether you're working for work, personally, it starts to, depend a bit. Is it an enterprise setup? Is IT doing it? Are you? Most of the time, folks I'm working with probably already have it because it's their organizational tool. All right, so sign in. When you sign in, it links you to the Power BI service, so you could publish. Whether you share or not depends on your license. But at this point, we're in. Go ahead and get data. So up at the top in the ribbon, there is a button, and it's called Get Data.
Okay, I am still trying to log in. Is logging in essential to doing this?
No. So
Okay.
skip it for now. Not
That.
essential. Could be important, but you know what? Not essential. We're not going to worry about it. I actually had trouble earlier too, multiple times, and I thought it was just my internet. And I'm like, I'm wondering if it's, is it glitchy? But that's probably a little suspicious. But go ahead and go and get data for me up at the top. So something to notice here up at the top is you've got your standard Microsoft ribbon, right? I've got home, insert, I've got my view, help. The home ribbon is going to give you a lot of what you need. And like many Microsoft tools, you can look for what you need in multiple places. So go ahead and get data, click on that, and you're going to get a drop down menu, right? And so right there will be many of your most popular data sources. Pick web for this example, please.
Okay, I'll click web there.
Yep. And then go ahead and paste that URL that you copied from the download data button.
All right.
All right. And you can just keep it on basic. If you notice at the end of that that link, it actually says CSV. So even though it's presenting as a link, we're actually connecting to a CSV that's stored on the web. So go ahead and click OK for me.
Fantastic.
Just for the people that don't know what that is, what is CSV?
Comma separated values is what it stands for. And so you can kind of think of it as a table, basically. It's structured a little bit differently. It's more performant. And for building reports, it's a little bit more performant. It's more optimized than, say, an Excel file. But but for practical purposes, a lot of folks would think it's similar to looking at like a table like you would in Excel. If you're not familiar.
It's just a bunch of numbers that are separated by numbers and letters that are separated by commas, and it's just and it keeps it in a file like that, where that way it's not specific to any kind of Excel spreadsheet or Word document, whatever,
Yep.
Perfect.
I see that in
You're showing yourself there. So first thing you'll notice is I love that. That's such a helpful way to connect those dots, right? Because we're pulling from similar sources. Why do we use them? What's the value? So if you can see right here, you get a preview right away. So the nice thing is you can tell if you connected to the right thing, right? So you're connected to a database, you've got 100 different tables. It'll list them out. In this case, we have one single source, one single CSV file. Bada bing, bada boom. At the bottom of this little preview, you'll see load and you'll see transform data. Transform data is what we want to click on. If you click load right now, it's just going to come in. At this point, what we're doing, we're going to import the data, right? And we'll apply it, import it. And it would be in a state where we think we want it to be ready to go, or that's why you would hit load. If you're ready to go right away, just hit load. But if you need to make any types of changes, transform data is your friend. And you can click on it there. But if you miss that, up at the top ribbon, there's a transform data button. So and what'll happen when you click on that is you should get another window that pops up. And so I'm hoping you do, because I would be weird if you didn't. It would be like, what happened?
Okay, so I'm gonna click on transform data right now, right?
Yes, please. Yep. Yeah, and thank you for being patient, because I'm going between screens to see what you're doing and then try to make it happen myself.
Yeah,
okay.
This is good.
Cool. So we've got data. We've got data in here. Woo. And you can see it's a separate window. So something to note on the desktop, it's the Power Query Editor, which is a feature. It's a tool within Excel as well. It's going to open its own window. So you can toggle between the two. But this is where most of your extract transform, load work is going to begin. And it always comes up, well, I need to do analytics, I need to do my math. Where do I do that? The general rule of thumb that we kind of go by is you're going to want to do your transformations here, and where it makes sense for performance, surely you can set up some calculations, and it's the language here, the M code, what we were talking about earlier, is going to capture all that. And then it's going to be part of your entire data set, that it's not just your data set. Now you have all of the logic that's built in as you've restructured it, combined sources, removed columns. And we're going to look at that together and kind of get a feel. But it is actually saved separately than the report side. And so when you publish it, you'll actually get two different artifacts, what they call it. So you'll have your data set and your report, which is the front and the back end.
Okay, let's slow down again. Let's take a couple steps backwards, okay? Because I want to talk to people that aren't familiar with the Power BI thing. So when you talk about transformations, we're talking about actually cleaning up the data. You're transforming the data. You got to do some cleanups. You got to make sure that you got no blank fields are in there. Maybe
exactly.
You got to make sure that the phone numbers are right and with the right formats and stuff.
Yep. It could be all of that. Yep. Especially if you're not. Yep. Keep going.
Okay, and then you got to shape. So when you're saying transforming, you're also shaping your data to fit into the type of report that you're wanting to go to. You may be looking at 2 or 3 different kinds of tables, and you're trying to fit these things in here. And that's all done with this Power Query Editor, right? That's all done with it at the same time. So when we say transforming your data, there's a lot to that.
Yes, thank you, Kurt. You nailed it, and you're such a good explainer of how things are. That's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head.
Don't let his head get too big there.
Yeah.
Well,
I got this Macy's balloon head going on here right now. Macy's balloon head. I got that.
What happened? I know.
Who's got the power, Darren? Who's got the power? I got the power.
You guys.
Okay, Kurt. I don't know where that came from.
You guys are silly. Okay.
That's funny.
Anyway, so I just find it. So sometimes, I hope you don't mind. I know that I cut in sometimes, but I just feel like I want people.
Don't mind. I'm looking for Zoom.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
I love.
Guys.
I'm about it. Alrighty, so we're here. I actually am wondering, can I take this? Can I take the screen back to give the tour? Just
sure.
Real quick. And then that way, I feel like a little bit here. I can. What I was trying to do, or do you have a zooming tool? Actually, that would maybe be the thing.
I do.
I don't need to do that.
Okay. I do.
Then that was all I was. Oh, look at this. Okay. Yeah. Take me up to that top left corner, please.
You need to circle around that bank name one time in your zooming tool, Darren.
Okay. How do I do that, Kurt? Tell me what the thing is.
Control 2.
Control 2. Oh,
never mind. Okay.
Sometimes it gets a little. This is looking good. Oh, I can see now. Okay, so if you slide it up to the left so I can kind of see the whole thing, and we're going to talk about this. Scrolled up. Yep, looking good. So up at the top, we've got a ribbon. It should look pretty familiar to a lot of folks that are in Excel using this type of stuff. But you hit the nail on the head. You want to talk about the potential with transforming, extracting features and things that people used to really only be able to do with back-end coding is now available with the click of a button. And what I frequently encounter when I'm training, especially engineers, is this aha moment where they're like, I spent 4 hours like manipulating Excel and manipulating files from multiple source systems. And I could have done it here in, a fraction of the time. And I could have then reused my code again and again and again, because the file structures don't change. So where I see a lot of power in Power BI is that piece, the extract, transform, load, not even just visualization.
Well, to your point, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the Power Query Editor came from the SQL Server, right? It was actually imported in. So now us common folk can use it. You don't have to be this IT expert wizard like Darren. You can just, somebody like me, and you can come in here and work with it now.
And that's really useful when you're coming from different languages, because maybe you're an expert at what you know, but not this new thing. It makes it reduces that barrier 100%, like you said. And you need the functions of a lot of SQL type things, right? Like that's important for data, but you don't have to be the expert. You can work with experts and learn from them and still go forward with this tool. I value that.
I do too.
All right, so up at the top, we've got our home ribbon. You can see things like enter data. I can create custom lists. If you click on data source settings, I'm just going to kind of tour us around here. This is where all your data sources would be listed. You can change the source here. So for example, if I'm working in a Power BI file and I'm developing and I send it to you, you may have to update a file that's saved locally on your machine. Maybe it's the same file, but you're trying to work in it. You can come here, update your sources, edit permissions. There's privacy levels depending on your organization. Things like parameters, you were talking about adding functions, passing in parameters. You can parameterize things like the data source, so that it's always able to be changed by that end user viewing the report. They can update it, or somebody, the parameters become really interesting. And I think if you're interested in more, I'm going to plug the book when it comes out. Go check it out. But things like, this is really great. Go ahead and click on the advanced editor if you don't mind. And it's a small button, but it's a huge feature.
Advanced editor. Where's that?
So it's a couple over. So I said manage parameters, then there's a preview, and it's like, where is it, right? It's kind of tucked in there. It's listed. It's not even a full button. So it's under properties and between manage. I would say it's like kind of in the middle of the bar if you're looking at it.
Okay, so I've got data source settings. I got manage parameters, then refresh preview. Oh, you said properties?
And right now, advanced editor. I feel like this should be actually like in bold, but maybe because not everybody goes to the advanced editor. Although if you're going to be in Power BI doing transformations, you will essentially need to be in here. But I just wanted to show you, if you click it open, what you should see is this is your first glance at the M code, the mashup language. So this is your container for all of that semantic logic, all of the transformations. And what's neat is what you can't accomplish, what you cannot accomplish with the GUI, you can often come in and accomplish by manipulating or updating or changing the code. So if you are more code dominant, this is your friend.
So Kurt, we're in Power Apps and we got our galleries and our buttons or whatever. We got our FX little code window. Is that sort of what this is? A little bit. I don't know if you're familiar with the code editor that we have in Power Apps. Okay. Is that sort of what this is? That allows us coders to get in here and get nerdy?
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. So the function bar, you can see it up at the top too, right? So these are the snippets based on the steps I've clicked on. So up at the top, the advanced editor is going to give you that full picture of all of your steps that you've taken. On the right side of your screen, if you push like the advanced editor window to the side a little bit, you can see what's called the query settings pane. And there's something called the applied steps. And that's where you could change the name of the table potentially. But if you click on those applied steps, you'll notice some of them have gear icons. They all have X's if you hover over them. You can remove and add steps. You can insert steps as you're doing things. It'll always warn you if you're going to break. Yeah.
So you were talking about the applied queries that I have here at the top on the ribbon?
Yeah. So looking at your screen, I can see you've got the creator. So zoom out a little bit or go all the way to the right, actually. All the way to the right. All the way to the right. Yep. Over here. So you're there. I just saw it. Oh, yeah. No worries. So right there, you see query settings. On the right side, there's this pane called query settings. And so let's do a couple of things. So go ahead in that query editor. I want you to click on under properties where it has the name. Go ahead and change the name to failed banks or banks.
Okay,
One moment. Note to Microsoft, if you're listening, we would like this editor, this advanced editor set up like this. Do you see how it's separated from the actual platform? We would like that in Power Apps too. Please.
Vote that up. Yeah, it's so helpful to see everything laid out because the snippets don't do it. And you can't remember everything and see it.
Exactly.
100%. They probably could add that feature. And if they do, we're going to feel like we've contributed.
So on the right side here within Power Settings, am I able to do anything while I've got this advanced editor window up?
So right now if you look at it, you are highlighting, yes and no. So if you click on the applied steps and you open the advanced editor, it's going to, okay, so I'm trying to think of how to answer your question.
Should I close this advanced
Go ahead and
editor?
close it. Yep, go ahead and close it. for a
Right.
second because we kind of looked at the code. And then go ahead and click on those steps. Yeah, sorry. That's what I didn't understand what you meant. To rename it. Yep, go ahead. Name
Right. So
that
we're
there. Close that.
gonna what should we call it?
Failed banks is fine. Or banks, It's
Failed
gonna be our
bank.
fact table. We're gonna build the world's simplest little model. We'll bring in a date table too.
Okay, we're gonna bring in a date table.
Yep,
Okay.
and momentarily. Yep. But
Okay,
if you
cool.
and if you so zoom in on that query editor if you don't mind, or the query editor, but that pane, you see
Mhm.
that there's those little icons, those gears on the right side. I want to
Uh-huh.
talk about this. It's really important from a development standpoint. So if you click on that gear, just right there, go
Mhm.
ahead and click on one of the gears. It could be for source or the second setting.
Okay.
What this means is that's an editable step. So if you click on the gear and it should pull it up, you should see like a dot. It's kind of hard to see a little bit from my screen, but
Mhm.
you should then see where you can either edit or see more information. You can see the sort, right? It's every gear is a step that you can go back and you could edit regardless of where you're at. Not
Mhm.
only that, but it indicates that it has the ability to query fold. And so what query folding is, we were talking about this mashup language and integrating with connectors. Query folding is where that mashup container recognizes the logic and pattern of your steps in your transformation, and it pushes the work. It creates a query that pushes it back to the native language of your source system. So it forces some of that filtering and some of that work upstream, which helps with report performance. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And so there's strategies when you're connecting to different data sources and what your steps for transformation would be, because when you break the order of those gears, it no longer can just query. It becomes a partial query fold. But for as many gears that you can keep in order, you can basically, it'll automatically package that up and force the work to be done back upstream, which is huge, because otherwise you're constrained by your machine, because Power BI operates on your local machine. So it's constrained by that, but as well as your network constraints, right? When you're moving data. So that can be huge for loading.
Okay.
Exciting stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So go ahead and click OK for that. And
Okay.
then you'll see, I think in your steps, it probably, if you go to that last step, did it promote the headers? It's kind of hard for me to read.
So what should I zoom in on to
No worries. So I think
answer the
if you
question?
just go ahead and what you want to make sure is in your query settings, those steps, make sure you're on that last step. If you're highlighting another step, you're going to insert a step. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So just go
So
to
I've
the
got
last one.
so it
Mhm.
says source, promoted headers, and changed type.
Yep. And so Power BI will automatically pull data in, and it'll try to understand your data. So if it thinks it should promote the headers, like my headers are, or my first column is, or my first row is headers, it'll start to take some of those steps and do it for you. But I want us to take a few steps together, right? So I've got
Okay.
all of these columns. Best practices, I only bring in what I need, right? So I could delete columns, or I could choose my columns. And so up at the top in that home ribbon, you'll see we were just in the advanced editor. If you go to the next set of buttons over, there's options to choose columns, remove columns. You can keep rows, remove rows. This is starting to get into that manipulation of your data, right? And so the main difference that you want to remember, if you click on removing columns, right, you're going to, that step is a black and white step. You're not going to be able to edit it. So later on, if you want to add columns back in, you could have messed yourself up quite a bit. So another option is to choose the columns. So go ahead and click on choose columns for me.
Yeah.
And what you should see, I think, is a list of all the columns. Super convenient. You can also search for columns. And we don't need everything in this list. So let's get rid of certification. Let's get rid of acquiring institution, and let's get rid of fund.
Okay. So I went to the
Mhm.
ribbon and I clicked on choose columns with a little downward arrow, and I got
Yep.
choose columns and go to column.
Yep. So go ahead and click choose columns.
Choose columns. All right.
Yep. And this is one way to do it. Another way would be to highlight your columns, multiple, right click, and you could remove or choose, right? So you can, it's like everything with Microsoft. You can pretty much right click or do it in the ribbon.
Okay.
And that makes it fun. So here we want to choose our columns.
So it says insert step. Are you sure you want to insert a step? So I'm going to click insert.
Well, okay, so this is a good point. It's nice that it warns you because we didn't intentionally want to insert a step here. It would be better at this point to go to the final step and then take another one, so it builds sequentially. If there's value in breaking it or inserting a step, absolutely, but you wouldn't just want to do that. You want to make sure you're always building on your last step in general. That's how I would approach it.
So
Yep.
on this pop-up here, should I click on insert or cancel?
So go ahead and cancel that because we don't want to insert a step. Make sure you're in that query settings on the steps there. That you have clicked on the last step. So it should be like change type, I think.
Type.
I'm just guessing, or whatever the last step is for you because I can't quite see it.
The last step. Now we're talking about the ribbon though, right?
Oh no, I'm so sorry. So go out on the right side, you've got your query settings where all of our transformation steps have taken place. And so what's happening is under applied steps, it's starting you at the first step. And we don't want you to start there. We want it to be on the, perfect. So we don't want to be under source. That's the first step. It brought it in, promoted the headers automatically and changed the type. Click on change type. That's the last step.
All right.
So in general, developing, you want to be on your last step unless you're intentionally don't want to be on your last step, right? Just as, and it's good to know because this is perfect real world stuff. It's like, if I clicked off and I wasn't aware that that was there, I could accidentally, insert a step, right? And Power BI should be almost a fearless tool. We should be able to explore it and not be worried about breaking things, or at least not too severely. So it's nice that they have these steps, but you need to know they're there and where to click. It's a really unique feature, I think, in that way.
Okay.
So now we're on our last step. Friend, if you would go ahead and choose those columns again for me.
What columns do I click on?
Yeah, so click on the button and choose the columns, and we're just going to keep the bank name. We're going to keep city and state, but get rid of cert, get rid of acquiring institution, and go ahead and get rid of fund for now.
So how I get rid of one? Do I right click and say remove?
Yeah, so when you look at your screen, so up at the top, if you click on the you can go ahead. That's going to give you the option to remove. We want to choose the columns. So up in the ribbon, I would choose the choose columns right there. Yep.
All right. Do I click on this icon above the word choose columns, or do I click on the little downward chevron?
You can do either. You can do either. It's kind of like going in the front door or the back door. You're getting the house either way.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So here's our bit list.
So before what I did is I hit that downward chevron and I clicked on choose columns, and then it gave me something else. Okay, this is this. Okay, so I'm slowly learning this. I feel like
it's so exciting. You're giving. I love learning with people and watching them learn because I
feel like I'm walking for the first time here, guys.
Yay! Yay! We'll get to machine learning and AI, guys. We're all walking out. I mean, I'd like if I was doing Power Apps and I haven't done it in a long time. I haven't made a Power App in a long time. I would be clicking around and exploring. That's why we're here, right?
This is fascinating stuff, though, guys. This is really
yay! I'm glad you think so. I was trying to think like a developer because normally I would spend all my time talking about visualize, storytell, the impact, the humans, and it's cool too. But this is really exciting. All right, so let's keep bank name, city, state, get rid of cert, get rid of the institution, and get rid of the fund.
So we are transforming data as we speak.
Absolutely.
And we're going to do some cool stuff with this data too, like maybe make a chart or something.
Yeah, we are going to eventually get to a visual. We are going to get there. Yep. So go ahead and hit OK, and you'll see that step. All right. And now we've got a nice lean table. That's what we want, right? You wouldn't want that everything to come in. It's a waste of your memory. And so if you zoom in on those steps, go ahead just for the sake of like the teaching stuff. Go ahead and click, and you see that removed other columns, right? That was the last step we took. That's what you just did. So if you click on that gear, that little gear that's on the side of it, you're going to get a pop-up, and you're going to be able to edit that step with your GUI.
Okay.
Yep. And now just for the sake of tying it together, go ahead and open that and close this and open your advanced editor, because I want you to see that we have another step added just to like
Okay.
put the pieces together.
Okay.
Yep.
So what should I do here?
Close it
Just
if you
close it.
don't
Okay.
mind. Yeah,
It
just
can
close it. Open up that advanced editor that's hidden. It should be boldly displayed, but it's hidden. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yay. Go
So
ahead.
I'm
Open
zooming
it.
in and out here. Advanced
Yep.
editor. And now we're
Yep.
there.
And
Okay.
then if you zoom in, there should be a
Mhm.
last step and it'll mirror what was in the query. So that hashtag or the pound sign,
Mm-hmm.
and then it says, what does it say? What's the last step before the end statement?
Before removed other columns.
Yep. And then the
Okay.
step on the side is removed other columns. So you can rename your steps here, right? I could customize my columns here in the code versus using the GUI. I could get really creative when I'm doing joins and merging and append, right? It starts to open your eyes to what you can, once you've taken a basic step, what you can get into, right? It's kind of fun. It's cool. It's cool stuff.
It is.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's get out of there for a second and let's do maybe one or two more really neat things. I want to get the rest of the tour of the ribbon up at the top, just real quick, just to sort of show. So if you zoom in, if you don't mind, and then we're going to actually do what's called a custom column. I'm excited about this because this is a fun little Power BI thing.
Okay.
And it's not even that little, but so up at the top ribbon, just to cover the tour, we've got choose columns, remove columns, rows. I can split things. I can group them, pivot, unpivot. General best practice is to, especially for analytical type functions, you're going to want long tables, not wide. So the pivoting and unpivoting is a best friend. It does use a lot of performance, I think. I have friends that are pivot crazy, and I'm like, your reports are slow because you're pivoting and unpivoting a little too much. But you can do things
I'm recalling an episode of Friends where was it Joey's like pivot and they're trying to move a couch up the stairs. Have you guys seen that episode?
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about. And they get like stuck, if I'm remembering it correctly.
You're pivoting too much.
Yes, that's exactly. So that's like we got to have that in our mind. Like, don't pivot too much. You need to do something else if that's.
I've got a really basic question aside from the whole Friends thing. Listen, I hear about this pivot thing in Excel. Oh, I've got a pivot table. Listen, I understand relational data. What's a pivot table?
It's a lookup.
Yeah.
That's
So
all it is.
It's what?
Yep. Kurt, go for it.
It's just a lookup. That's all it is. It's just a lookup. It's a column where you go and you look up. It's got the lookup for the next table.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to, the one to many, you're putting the lookup in a field to go back the other way. So when you hear about
is that not a join?
It's a join. It's kind of she's shaking her head no.
I feel like in a way it kind of is, but it's a join is usually like a one-to-one right at the row level. You can aggregate, like Power Pivot is design. You're right how you described it completely, but I would say it goes a step further. It's a Power Pivot. Then say have a pivot table there. It's a Power Pivot table, and they're producing some kind of analysis. So there's oftentimes aggregation or slicing and filtering. So it really was what led to this. Power Query, Power Pivot, Excel, all turned into Power BI because they wanted to integrate that more seamlessly. So those functions of and they don't exactly you don't see it the way it's repackaged exactly like that, but you explained it well. I think you explained it well.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting you have to think about it. That's not I don't feel like that's a basic question though. I feel like that's a very valid
question. I'd like to get you guys' pulse on how we're doing. We've gone an hour and we're planning on going around 2 hours. Okay. And sometimes we need to get up and stretch our legs or whatever.
Yeah.
Would now be a good time to do that, because when we do take a break, I've got a super duper special to show you guys, which is one of Kurt's videos. But how are we doing on time? Are you guys feeling good? Is there about time for a break?
Yeah, let's do a break. And then what we'll do is we'll do a couple more transformations. We'll load the data. Well, I'll probably add a date table, load the data. We'll look at relationships, a basic calculation, and visualize. And we cover all that ground and chat.
Okay. Now I've got this special little clip. Is Kurt, how long was it? You did an awesome video, and I think it's around maybe 15 minutes but it's over the sequence function within Power Apps. Is there anything you can tell us about that? And where did this come from? Is the PPC? What is that?
Right. Okay. So for Power Appers out there, for the people that are dealing with Power Apps, I know we're on Power BI, but back to Power Apps for a minute. The sequence function is something so that you can make a for all transforms, since we're transforming data here. It transforms the for all function into a for next loop. So instead of doing a for all where you're looping through a data source, the sequence function will actually emulate a for next loop. And that means it actually has all the steps of a for next loop. You have to have the exact number of times that you're going to do the loop. You have to know the starting point where you're going to start this count at, and you have to have the step. How many times do I want to step? Am I going to go 5, 10, 15, 20, or am I going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That. So the sequence function does all of those things for you. Some people think the sequence function does nothing but give you a set of numbers, but it actually tells you how to go through this for all loop. So it's kind of cool. And I do a video demonstrating that.
Now, did this come from a series of videos?
Yeah, actually, it actually comes from the personal pocket coaching series that we do, Darren. It's a reference library. It's actually build your own reference, and we're going to talk about PPC later on, probably today. But I just wanted for the quick time, it's a video in your mailbox every morning covering some small little nugget of Power Apps. We're going to be doing some kind of a thing. In this case, it was sequence, and it's supposed to be a 5-minute or less video, but Kurt can't do anything in 5 minutes, man. It's 10 minutes, But I love it because you're actually building your reference, and instead of me going on and on and on about stuff, we actually get to the point. So I think it's pretty cool.
Okay.
And remember, people pay big money for this. I want to talk to you guys about sequence in this video, the sequence function. The sequence function is created to work with the for all function. And the for all function was created, it actually extends the functionality of a for all function. The for all function was created in order to loop through a data source. It might be a collection, or it might be a table. And it was simply just go through each record one at a time until the very end of the file, and you would perform some task within that. But that's sort of a do while loop type thing, right? Whereas a for next loop is where you know the number of times you need it. That's when you want to use that. When you know that you know the exact number of times that you need to use that loop. It needs to go through that loop. And the sequence function allows you to do that. Most people think that there's one parameter with the sequence function, but there's actually 3. And it makes it a very powerful function. Like I said, it extends the power of the for all function and turns it into a for next looping construct. So let's go ahead and go to the screen here. And I have a program where I'm reversing a string with a for all and a sequence. And you guys might have seen this a few videos ago. I created a challenge for you guys to see if you guys can implement that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and reveal some of how I handled that. And it's a perfect scenario for using the sequence. And when I try to do examples of different kinds of functions or whatever we're dealing with at that moment, I like to do something that's a little bit beyond simple. A lot of times people like to give you a simple thing so that you can understand it, but then you don't see the imagination doesn't let you work through this and see how you can really make that thing more powerful. So I like to do something a little bit more complicated so that you have to think outside the box. And if you see that example, well, then you'll be able to understand simple, and you'll be able to see how powerful this function really is. Most people think of sequence like saying, okay, I want to do something 10 times, and I'm going to go through it. But there's so much more you can do with this. And I want to explain this within this little app I've got here that reverses a string. In this case, what I'm going to do is I've got a text input box, and I'm going to just type my name in there. I'm going to click reverse the string, and it's going to create another string here. This Kurt now becomes truck. If I type Darren and hit that, it's going to be Nirad. That's his World of Warcraft name, right? So let's go ahead and see how that gets done. First thing I want to do is I want to show you the text input boxes. And in here, This is just the name. We care about the name here. TXT string to reverse. That's pretty important. That's what we're going to reverse the contents of whatever's in here. In the label, in the text property, you'll see I have a collection, and I'm using the first function, which goes to the very first record in whatever data source you use. It could be a table or a collection. I know this is a collection because I named it COL. I prefixed it COL. That's my naming convention that says that's a collection. And I've got a field in here called dot reversed string. It's the only field in this collection. We're going to show you how that's created here in just a moment. Let's go to it. In the button right here, this is where all the stuff's done. And I want to focus on this right here. This part right here. This sequence, you'll see I've got, this is the focus of this whole video right here. This sequence, I've got the length of the trim of the string to reverse dot text. That's the first parameter. But then I've got a second parameter here, which is the same thing. So in the sequence function, the first parameter is the number of iterations that you got to go through. In this case, we want it to be the length of the string. And I put a trim in front of it in case there's any kind of leading or trailing spaces. Get rid of the spaces. And it's going to be whatever the length is. In the terms with Kurt, when I type Kurt in, that would be 4, right? The second parameter is where to start your string at. You can start it at any place. You can start it at 1 or you can start it at 4. In this case, it's going to be 4 because I'm going to reverse this string. So I want to go to the very end. I want to go to the very end. So the first parameter is the number of times you want to iterate. The second parameter is the starting position of your loop. The third parameter is the step parameter. How many times, how much do you want to step each time? You could do this like if it was 1 through 100, and you could say step 5. It would be every 5. So it'd be 5, 10, 15, 20. If it was 10, if you put a 10 there, it'd be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Step minus 1 means I'm going to go backwards. So if I'm using Kurt, and I've got 4, it's going to start, it says, I want you to loop 4 times. I want you to start at position number 4, and I want you to go backwards 1 space. Okay? So that's all the sequence is. Again, first parameter, the number of times you're going to iterate. The second parameter, the starting position of your iteration. The third parameter, how much do you want to step? How far do you want your step to go? And it can go backwards as well as forwards. Okay? So, in this case, I'm starting my thing at 4. I'm going to go 4 times, and I'm going to go as minus 1. So now that's going to be that works as my data source. You'll see right there, this right here, this highlighted text here works as the data source as the for all function. We're going to talk about for all in depth later, but for now, just know that the first parameter is going to be the data source. So sequence works as a data source. Now, you'll notice here I've got this as my. I like to use aliases in here. You could use this record dot. Down here, you'll see my being used right here. You'll see I've got a my dot value. You could say this record dot value. Now that's another important point of sequence. When I run this code, let's actually see what's in here. The sequence. If you look down here, I don't know if I can even get to that. Let's see if I make that smaller now. Look at this. Okay, so I used this last time with Darren, right? And this is actually what happens in the sequence. It actually creates a small table for you, a one field length table. And the table's name is going to be called value. And it starts, because I started backwards, I started in position 6 with Darren, because he has 6 characters, not 4. And I went backwards 1 time, all the way down to 1. See that? So you can actually see the way this thing's working. You can actually see it playing out. I love this little feature of Power Apps right here, where you can just click on an item and it shows the contents below it. So you can see how this is working. It puts a thing in there called value. Now you could say this record, but the reason why I like to use aliases is because within Power Apps, sometimes, especially if you're doing any kind of nesting loops or nesting ifs, it can't resolve the ambiguities between which data source you're working with. But if I use I don't have to use this record. This record is usually what we use with for all. It's built to be used with for all. But you can also give it an alias name, like as my. So I'm taking the sequence of this data source and I'm giving it an alias name of as my. So now my becomes the label, the name of this sequence function, the output of this sequence function, the table, this table right here, this table of values, right? The name is value there. So what I do is I go through and I loop. Now I'm doing a patch here. Now this is why I like collections. In a for all, you can't use update context and you can't use set, but you can do collections. So that's why I've got a collection used in here, because I want to use a little variable that allows me to keep track of things. And I've got this thing called reverse string. I do a clear collect up here, create a collection called call reverse, and I put a field in here called reverse string, and I initialize it to nothing. So when I come in here then, I start backwards. I go to, let's say Darren. I go to the 6th position, which is an N, and I'm going to go through this thing one at a time. First it'll be 6, then it'll be 5, then it'll be 4, then it'll be 3, then it'll be 2, then it'll be 1, and then it's done. So then I come in here for each one of those. On the 6th one, I say patch. I'm going to patch this record source, call reverse. And right now it's empty. In the beginning, it's empty. Right now it's got NIRAD in it. But in the end, or in the beginning, it's going to be empty. Let me get this blown back up again here. So there's only going to be one record in this collection. I'm only using it. This is kind of my replacement of an update context variable. I just want one variable in here, and it's going to be reverse string. So I use the first because it's the first record. It's the only record, but I got to give it a record number. So in the patch, the first parameter is the data source, call reverse. The second one is the record. In this case, it's always going to be the first. The third parameter is going to be the fields that are going to be updated. In this case, there's just one field, because again, I'm just treating this like it's a variable. And it's going to be called reversed string. And remember, we initialized it to empty right up here. Down here, each time it comes through here, I'm going to say first reverse. Now, here's another thing. You can't just say, in some programming language, you can say reverse string equals reverse string plus some value to increment it, right? You can't do that in Power Apps. You have to resolve the address every time. You see in the patch here, this second parameter is the resolution of what am I working with here? What do you want me to work with? I want you to work with the very first record of that collection. So I come down here to reverse string and it says, okay, what am I working with when you want me to add something to it? You're saying reverse string is going to equal what? Well, it's going to equal that value, the same exact value, this same one right here. Now this time, instead of saying first call reverse, I've got a dot reverse string here. That's the actual field right here. So I'm going to say that field contents, and I use an ampersand because I'm splicing two strings, not just numbers. It's a concatenation. And what I'm doing is I'm using an ampersand, and then I'm going to use this mid function. Now, again, some of these functions are things we're going to talk about later. But for now, I just want you to see what we're doing here. We're doing a mid. I'm taking the middle, the middle one character. You see this right here in the mid? You got this parameter here. You could say 3 characters, 5 characters, whatever character amount you want to take. But I'm taking it in the middle. And I'm saying the middle, I'm taking this trim. This is what I'm working with right here. This is the value that I'm working with. That's the first parameter of mid. The second parameter is going to be the starting position that you're taking, which is going to be my dot value. So it'll be 6, then it'll be 5, then it'll be 4. And I'm only going to take one character. So what I'm saying is, every time I come through that loop, I'm going to be working with one character. And this middle parameter is where I'm going to take the starting position, and it's the finishing position too, in this case, because there's only one. So the starting position and finishing position is going to be that character right there. So the first time it will be N, because we're doing Darren, and it'll be 6. And it'll be N, then it'll be E, and so on and so forth, all the way up to D. And I'm working my way backwards through this string. That's all I'm doing here. And that's how the sequence works. So let's run it one more time. I'm going to put Ellie in here. And that almost spells the same thing, doesn't it? So I want to go into this right here. And this sequence value, it's a list. It starts with 5 and then goes all the way down. Now I gotta make that go smaller again here. I'm gonna bring that down just a little bit. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The reverse string, in this case, is going to be right here. It's going to be EIL. Okay? So the string to reverse is going to be Ellie. So there you have it, guys. That's pretty much the sequence. Remember, first parameter is the number of times you want to go through the loop. Second parameter is going to be the starting position. Third parameter is going to be the step counter. And you can go minus. Thanks for watching. Hope it helped.
I like it.
There you have it.
Very cool. All right, so we're back, and Erin, you did send me a link. Is that something that I should bring up on the screen or anything?
Not for the moment, because I want to track. But Kurt, I really liked your video, and I like your picture at the end.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna learn. I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Let's go.
Let's jump in. Yeah, let's do it. So, what I'd like to accomplish.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Before you get started, I just want to say so much. We're spending quite a bit of time in here getting this data, looking at this data, getting to the data, cleaning the data up, looking at it. That's what you spend a lot of time doing, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
A lot of time in Power BI, it's not all just pretty pictures and everything. It's all about formatting and stuff. And I just want to say, that's a big reason why Power Apps is such a big deal. If we can get that data in there the way it needs to be done, then people can spend less time dealing with this on this side of Power BI and on the pretty picture side of it.
I love it. I'm with you on that. I think the biggest pain points are usually ETL pain points. I mean, unless you genuinely hate visualization and you're like, what's the point? And it drives you crazy. Otherwise, no, just generally. You're right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We spend a lot of time. And I guess the reason I wanted to camp here a bit and pull it apart is because I'm thinking your audience is developers and engineer types who are building and really getting into the weeds with the data. And I want to show that this is a powerful tool for business intelligence. It's not just a visualization layer. I think that's a big mistake in enterprise thinking and development thinking, because you can prototype and really launch yourself ahead of development cycles. I see that happen a lot.
I see that. That's pretty cool. I never thought of that, but that's and we talked about this last time we talked. That all projects, engineers, I mean, everybody that's working with this stuff, the end result is the report. The whole reason why we do what we do is so that somebody at some place can look at something and make sense of it.
That's right. You know what? You just set me up. So before we do the rest of what we're doing, let's go look at the data galleries. It's so exciting. So you can Google search. Go ahead.
Okay.
I was giving the link, but I was like, no, we're gonna Google this, because what I love about Microsoft is the fact that everything is so accessible from a learning standpoint. So if you're not quite sure, you know what I mean, what you want, you can find it. There's tons of things, right? So data stories gallery is what Microsoft puts all of their showboat Power BI reports. And so what I want to do is, usually how I set up a training is like, we lead with the end result, right? And then it kind of gets people excited. So I'm trying to see your screen. Data stories gallery. Yep. Right there. Go ahead and click on that for me. And I think it'll default take you to whatever the most recent But I'd like to look at like the featured ones, because this is like you said, it ends up in a report. At the end of the day, we love the data, we're interested, all the folks touching it probably are, but really it's about information in the right hands, and the right information in the right hands, right? So the creativity factor for how you connect with your audience is so important. And I say that to mean, things like branding for companies, getting your colors right, appealing to your audience. That's really what I enjoy so much. But because it matters. You want people to, oh, yay, look I can see. Okay. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Look at these beautiful report examples, guys. Woohoo. So these are the recently added ones. You can see just at a glance, they are the range of what you can do. You can go from like a website type experience report to a dashboard type experience. You could have tons of detailed tables. You could do no tables at all and have all visualization, pictures, branding, you name it, we can do it. It's Power BI, folks. Like I actually really meant to start here because this is the excitement factor. So something that I look for and I always draw to is you can search. So if you want to look for mining or construction, people in my industry, we're going to look in that, and I try to spark them a bit. But if you go to like say featured, they have some really great ones there. There's project management reports. There's quizzes about food. And I would say, why don't we pick one that we think is interesting? And just for 2 seconds, what'll happen here is you can open it up. You will be able to preview the report. So it's a good example of an embedded report in a website. Power BI can be ultimately published to the web, mobile. It could be in the service. It can be delivered in your email, right? Like this is a great example of embedding in a website and then being able to interact with the report. So hopefully it's just click there, click anywhere, and go ahead and pick one. Like the world one of the project ones, anything, just go ahead and pick it, and we're going to open it up and click. Like this is the joy of discovery. Woo-hoo.
All right. Very good.
Global Superstore. So who knows if it's real data or fake data? And sometimes it's definitely interesting information if it's up to date. You're like, wow. So it's taking a second to load.
Yeah, for people like me, you can just tell me anything. I believe it's all real.
That's funny. You're like, what's the date on that? If it's from 2019, maybe we should question it. It was 5 years ago. So it seems to be taking a second to load. And that's, let's
it
talk
says
about
the content isn't available right. I don't know if you see that or not.
Oh, I can't see that. No, so just go ahead and pick another one. My guess is something broken. They didn't remove it, or, you know what I mean? One of their source settings. So just anything. That one's a good one. Yeah. I think all the data's from like 2019. So that's the one I looked at. I was like, this is interesting. I was like, it's 5 years old. It's still interesting. But
it's still
all right. So this to me is a great example of why we love Power BI. Like in today's little demo we're not going to get to this place of building. We can. You go piece by piece. It's not as hard as it looks. The clever use of images on the canvas, layering your visuals, there's tips and tricks that make this a lot easier than it looks, but it's really captivating. Like when I look at this, I'm immediately gripped by the contrast of the colors, the simple layout, the fact that I can tell at a glance I could click. So go ahead and click on a country in that left chart. Just go ahead on one of them, anything. You'll start to see cross filtering. Yep. So what's cool about Power BI, and one of the cool things is the interactions between visuals and how the data within the model is translated into your visuals, and it all cross filters. It can, and you have options to edit those interactions. I could make it so one visual filters and the other doesn't, but that's one of where it starts to get interesting for our consumers.
To interrupt again, can you automate those clicks and stuff to where it'll show like a presentation?
Yeah, you can actually save views. Like say, for example, if you want to filter it to certain lead people through, what you can do is you can save that as what's called like a bookmark, for example, and you could order it and set it up so it's just a click through and you're driving people through your story. That's exactly what one of the benefits is, because you can tell your story, the logical way that makes sense and lead people through. That comes up a lot in mining. It's great to have all the data. If it's out of order and it's not telling me the story the way I would logically think about it, it's almost no good to me, because then I'm jumping, right? So mirroring the business logic and setting it up in Power BI is huge benefit. Yeah. That's one of my favorite benefits, if I'm honest. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, like let's, right? Like you do all that hard research and work. You want it to look good and you want people to navigate easily.
Yeah.
It should be fun to navigate. And so this is just one page, but you could click around. You can change filters up at the top, settings, all kinds of things. Like you saw, some of them are multiple pages you're driving through. There you go. You're clicking around.
Wow.
Like, I love that you're clicking around. Yep. And so you can see graphs. What do you guys think, though, as a Power App user? Like, what are you thinking when you're looking at this?
I'll let you go first.
I'm just thinking that's my data. That's my data coming into being alive right there,
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat. Yeah.
Yay. Happy moment. And you can see, like, I think as a decision maker or somebody who's looking for information, this is a great layout. I've got snapshots up at the top. They give me my cards, right? I've got breakout information that's trending, or perhaps it's in a table, so it's a detailed underneath. The colors are easy to see.
Yeah.
This is, to me, like, at a glance, a solid output, right? And so I enjoy training people how to create this final output. Like, we won't even come close to this far because we've spent a little, time in the back end getting familiar. But I'd love to work through actually maybe a series where we actually create a full report, not just, hey, here's what Power BI is, but it's not as hard as it's not as daunting or hard as it looks.
I mean, but you are just speaking in general terms at this point. In the end, because you have to, right? This is an overview, a high level overview. But
That's
in the
right.
end, all reports are based on who is looking at this, right? Is this somebody that's in the weeds? Do they need to know the detail? Or is this the CEO or the owner of a company who just wants to see the bottom line?
That's
and
exactly.
You want your presentation to point to those people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So well said. So well stated. There's emotional intelligence to great report building. I say, like, knowledge is power, emotional intelligence is king. This is the interface between you and the business. And really, from a career standpoint, you, as a leader, one of the things like I do to build up leaders in the space is really empower them to communicate with the business leaders and learn their language and understand the value proposition. So where you fit in the process, and you can be that bridge person between the technical folks, the business folks. Skills are transferable. How you treat other people is as well, and how you manage and deal with others and understand them.
So when you talk about emotional intelligence, what I hear you saying is that you're the person that says, okay, I've got a job and I'm working for my boss up here. I got a boss. Everybody's got a boss somewhere. It might be the customer, but at some point, everybody's got a boss, right? So I'm working for my boss. And if I make my boss look good, I look good. So if I can do something to make my boss feel really good about his stuff or her stuff, then it's going to be, it's a win for me, right?
That's right.
That's what you're saying. Right?
Yeah, it's a we thing. Your success is my success, whether I'm managing up, left, right, down. Maybe I have no line to anybody, but it's dotted lines because a lot of data reporting projects are across functional areas, and you hit the nail on the head. I agree with that. And I'm always telling Darren, my whole job is to make you look good. If you look good, I look good. That's my whole job. Love that. I love that. Yeah, it's important, and I think that actually I really do. I'll put a plug for Microsoft, Pragmatic Works, the guys that do DAX, the Italian gentleman, Ferrari and Alberto Ferrari and Marco Rossi. All these different leaders are so accessible, and there's so much guidance to be able to accomplish your goals and not just navigate the technical problems, but learn from folks who have learned how to deal with leaders and learn how to have the language of leadership. Because if you don't speak up at the right time, you end up with a sideways project that costs a lot of money, can ruin your reputation, can burn you out, impact teams. The consequences are real when we don't know our place as leaders and we don't work well with others. Right. It's real. It's not a joke. Like, the impact's tremendously real.
That's actually a side of this channel that we speak out about a lot. It's like, hey, you want to write an app. Like, what? Hold on. What'd you do before you open up Power Apps? Did you plan this project? Did you meet with the stakeholders? Did you gather the requirements? Did you design the data? Do you have the wireframes? I mean, if you're just trying to learn Power Apps, go up, open up Power Apps. But if you're going to build a real app I tell them like, hey, I'm telling you stuff that's gonna help you avoid disaster.
That's a
So
good way to say it.
yeah, I was just looking at this report here. This looks like
Yeah.
an app.
It does. So that's exciting because Power BI can look like a website or an app. That's absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. You can do that. And it would be cool. And what can be done, and maybe our next challenge is let's build something with a nice data set that's got better data than the one I'm showing you. Let's build a Power App, a Canvas app, or have one ready, and let's embed it in a report and get to where we're publishing it and playing with it. I think that would be a cool kind of outcome. I actually took this quiz and I was like, every answer has like a different, I didn't feel like it was a fair poll, if I'm honest. I loved the layout, but I didn't feel like it was a decent, anyways. All right, gentlemen, it's 11:30 my time. I know it's for you. Let's spend the next 30 minutes, since we've sparked up about people and outcomes. Let's get that data loaded. I'm going to show you a custom column, some more transform functions. Let's load it, and let's make at least one or two visuals and look at the visualization and talk about our next steps.
I
How
love
about
this.
that?
Erin, I just want to say before you go there, you're killing it here. You are just kicking butt. I love this thing. You're doing you're natural. And I just can't believe you've not been doing this. I can't wait till you get your own channel going. I think that's probably the direction you're going to go someday. And I think you're going to be a big success because I love your personality, and you're very well articulate. You know your stuff. And I just want to say that I think you're doing a great job right now.
I think we should do a workshop, have Erin lead it, called Build Your First Report. And so we've been doing workshops. This week will be our second workshop. So maybe we'll put you on a workshop if you're interested in that.
I'd love that. And I'll send all the instructor notes and stuff for the next one. We'll be real. Because I like to be organized too. But gentlemen, thank you so much for the opportunity and the encouragement. It's like a newer to entrepreneurship and venturing and having some health challenges right now. Like it's been tough, and you're so encouraging and you're leading the way. And I feel like it can be intimidating to plug back in, and I'm trying, and I appreciate that you gave me an opportunity and encouragement.
Yeah.
So I love Power BI.
I feel like the honor's mine that you get time out of year to teach us.
This was our opportunity
how to do reports.
Right. This is our opportunity. In 5 years, we're going to be saying, hey, we were there. We were there when you got started.
Yay. Oh, you guys are the best. All right. So let's create some more stuff. So if you can
one of our guys, Ben, we're used to seeing Ben. Interested to know if Darren and Kurt have used much Power Query. Kurt, have you used much Power Query in your past?
Not in the title of Power Query, but I've used a lot of software that has done this kind of thing. And in fact, I've even written software that has done this kind of thing.
Ooh.
So yeah, but I'm not written with this particular application.
I'm not sure that I know what Power Query is yet, but I am a data guy. I could write store procedures and views and all kinds of cool stuff, but Power Query, not yet. Maybe by the end of this live stream, I will say that I have.
So you're in Power Query. This is our transformation component. This is it. Well,
I'm adding it to my resume.
Welcome. It's kind of like, you arrived at your destination. You're so happy to be here. You didn't even know you were there.
This is
the Power Query editor.
Look at that. Yeah, look at the title bar of this window. It says Power Query Editor.
Right.
I have arrived.
Darren has been here for 2 hours and hasn't realized that he's even in Power Query Editor.
This tells me tour guide wise, I'm like, but I think, you know what? It's okay. Live and learn, right? Like maybe I could have done the tour and then. So here we are, Power Querying our way through. And what it is, it's like you said, you do stored procedures. You're familiar with the back end of all, and you're so familiar with the concepts. This is just another way to package it up with a great GUI that integrates, and it can be part of your data solutioning. It's one tool in the belt, but it's a great one. Yeah. So I up at the top, we talked about transformation steps, right? I want to show you a cool feature in Power BI. It's called custom columns. So up at the top ribbon, you should be able to see in your home ribbon. Let me see. I got to pull it up myself because the word add column. So I guess it's two over from maybe home, add column. Okay. And what I want you to do is click on column from examples for me. And I'm going to try to work here. So up at the top ribbon, you can see like at the very, very top, there's home, and then there's some transform, and then there's add column right there. Yep. Go ahead and click on that third one over.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead and click on that. And then,
Okay.
so I can't see that well. I think what's happening is like your screen is so small for me to
Yeah.
look at.
I'll zoom in again here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
In this zoom it tool, once I've got I have a whole grid of screens here.
Oh,
so
it's like,
I go up the
yeah, I
screen
doesn't
and
know
now
what
it's
you're- no worries. So go ahead and choose that first option, which should say something like column from examples. So right here, you can add columns and you can do custom ones, conditional ones. Like this is your world, your logic. You're used to this kind of thing. This is a cool feature. It uses IntelliSense. So Microsoft builds in this sort of like, I don't want to say it's AI, but it's like intelligent. It's thinking, and it will figure out your patterns just by using typing. So if you click into that first row that's available, where there's a blank space. So go ahead, like you see where it brought up on the right side. Yeah, right there. Okay, if you zoom into that, so I guess I don't know if you're able to. Go ahead and click on the row itself underneath the column header. So you just kind of double click into that. Yep. And it'll allow you to type. That's why I want you to do that. And so real quick, what we're going to do as an example is say, for example, I don't just want city and I don't just want state because Jacksonville, there's 4 Jacksonvilles in America. How do I know it's Jacksonville? I want to make a column that is going to combine city and state. And this is simple concatenate. I could write a function. I could combine the columns, using a conditional column, but I can also just type it in. So if you look at that first row, what's the city that's starting to be listed? It should be like Elkhart or something, maybe.
Sac City.
Okay, start typing that in.
Sac City.
Just start typing that in.
Okay.
And you can go ahead and select that, tab it over. It's fine. Or type the whole thing in. And then go ahead and after you do that, I want you to stay in there, put a comma, a space, and then type the state. So I basically want you to type on that row, locate the city and the state, and I want you to type out the city, comma, state. So you're going to reference the data that's in that row.
Okay. So it had SAC. Right, I'm sorry?
What'd you say?
Okay. So I've got SAC in there. You said hit tab and it just brought SAC. Go ahead.
Is that the first city? So it's hard to see, but if it's matching the first one, go ahead and put a comma at the end of it. And then put your state. Okay, so I can't see
my
it
state.
at all. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry?
Not state.
Okay.
Not the word, the name of the state in that row. Okay. So we're just referencing the data that's there.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So
the actual data itself in the row.
Okay, so I don't know what state.
So mine says Elkhart, Kansas. Okay.
I don't know what state that's in. Is it Florida?
All right. So which one removed? It should just be kind of listed there. So it really on the screen we should be able to see. So I'm really sorry. I feel like I'm not explaining this very well. In your table, I can't quite see it because it's tiny, but it should have like your city and your state in separate columns, right? Yep. So Ben just put it in there. So what you would do is start to type it out. So Sac City, comma, and then reference the state that you also see in that row. So you should be able to see that. And all it's going to do is pick up on that pattern and fill out the rest of the column, if that makes sense.
Okay. I think I got it. Ben,
yeah. And then, so if you look, does it line up? Did it do the pattern for you? So this is super helpful in my world. For example, if I have haul trucks, I have lab results from ore that's being tested, assay results, right? We can get these huge strings, and very quickly you may want to break out information and take from here and pull there. You don't have to write a complex function necessarily. You may be able to just type it out how you want it, and IntelliSense is going to figure that out. And if you don't get it once, you do it the second time. And by the third time, it pretty much will pick up your pattern, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Picasso.
Yeah. And thank you so much for bearing with right there. I think maybe, and so up at the top, if you double click on the column, rename merge, just call it city state.
Okay. So I'm going to right click on merge and rename it, or double click on. Okay. And city state. There we go. Now, should I take that
Or
space out of there? Doesn't matter.
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Go ahead and save. We're gonna save. We've called it trans out all of your transit back. We've added a custom column for performance. We can merge, append, we can our script, load it and apply it. So go ahead and do. We're going to save, ahead and close and apply, and we're going to get back into the other.
Okay. I don't. Kurt, is she breaking up for you? I'm just.
She is.
I think I heard you say go to the top left and save. Is that right? Maybe she'll come back. I think she dropped off. So
I was just about ready to say maybe if when she comes back, if she still struggles with that, maybe if she just goes with she can turn her photo off.
That will probably cut down on her bandwidth. I think she was saying go up to the top and hit save. Now, maybe I should hit Control S. Maybe. Oh, we got a little hourglass. Maybe that saved it.
I think you did it. There you go. It's getting ready to.
Wow. Okay.
You're
my first report. Oh, so Ben is saying, okay. Whoa. There are pending changes in your query. Okay, so I guess I'll apply those. And maybe hit, okay, failed blanks. Value was not specified. We've lost our tour guide. Failed blanks. Now, I think okay. She's about to come back. So guys, I do know that before we did the live stream, whenever you try to do anything new, just everything goes crazy, right? Yeah. The first time I did a live stream, I had an echo, really bad echo for the first 15 minutes. This is her first live stream. Of course, her internet is like, she was telling me, my internet's going in and out. So I think that's what she's dealing with. And
hey,
Ben,
if this was easy, everybody'd be doing it, you know?
Somebody said that to me the other day, and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully she comes back, guys. Guys, I hope that you are really enjoying this as much as we are, because depending upon the result, the traffic and stuff, I'd love to have her back. Maybe do a part 2, and maybe we could reschedule this when she's got some better internet. And because this is really fun. I really like this. I've been wanting to learn Power BI for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm not kidding. She's doing a good job. She's pretty good at this. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Kurt, I almost want you to talk about, because this is all reporting stuff, over in our accelerator program, you really sort of blow me away sometimes. You created these lab modules, and you got into collection mastery.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, did you do this? This is good stuff that you did. But you got into charts.
Right.
You never see any Power Apps people doing charts in their Power Apps applications. We can embed Power BI reports in our Power Apps applications. Yeah. But some people may not even know there's a chart control inside of Power Apps, and you can do some cool stuff. And a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people use it because either, tell me honest opinion, Kurt, are charts easy within Power Apps?
They're probably about as easy in Power Apps as they are in Power BI. Let's just put it that way. Let me start with that. That's not so bad. You just have to you got to know, and that's why collections are so important. That's why I put it in there with collections, because you see what we're doing in Power BI right now. We're in this Power Query Editor.
Yeah.
You've really got to use your Power Apps. You're doing Power Query editing with your data. You have to shape your data. So you have a set of tables out there that's storing information. In this case that I was showing, it was students and test grades, test scores. So, but I've got to be able to shape that so that it'll fit into the control. The control can only see data going in at one direction, one way. And my data is presented in a different way. It's stored in a different way. Most of the time it is. Very seldom are you going to get data stored in exactly the way that you want to report it. That's why joins are so important, right? And somebody told me a long time ago,
you can't do joins in Power Apps, can you?
yeah, that's what they told me. That's what they told me. And I said, no, I think you can. You just got to go through some hoops to get it. And it's not that bad once you know how to do it. But it's so important. Basically, what I'm doing in this collections and why the collections are so important is because that's exactly what we're doing in Power BI right now. Except guess what? I'm the programmer. You're the programmer, Darren. You can create this, you can store this data, manipulate this data in collections, and you can shape it and add columns and delete columns, all you want, hide things, show things, and you're not affecting the underlying persistent data. So you go in there and you shape this stuff just like you would in Power Query Editor. You get rid of all your blank records. You make sure all your stuff's formatted right. Make sure you have the right fields so that the chart control can see it. And then you dump the data into the chart, and voila, you've got a beautiful picture of a report. So and I really, especially within the accelerator program. Of course, accelerator programs are our flagship offering. That's the not only do we work with people and mentor people so that they become very advanced in their Power Apps journey and they become much more employable. They make more money. The mastery, you said it, collection mastery. This is probably the number one keystone that separates super good programmers from people who are just, dabblers. The average. Remember how we used to talk about the average bear?
Oh yeah.
They always say that programming in the software industry and the development industry is flooded with people. Everybody's trying to do it. And they are right, but there's always room, because the reason why is there was a lot of average bears out there, Darren. There's a lot of people, you guys know this. There's a lot of average bears. And the whole goal is that you can put yourself in a room of 100 people and be better than 50 of those. And as long as you're better than 50 of those people, you're going to be okay. So be better than the average bear. I call that the average bear rule. All right. So that's what makes you better than the average bear, is learning things like these collections and learning things like these pillars that we've been teaching you guys. Kurt's 10 pillars.
That's number 6, Kurt, of your pillars.
There it is.
Be better than the average bear. I want a whole mod or at least a lesson or something on all this stuff. Ben says, handsome chappy on screen there.
Whatever. That's so funny. So the point I'm trying to get to in that is that's kind of what we do in Accelerator, is we make people better than average bears so that they can expect to make more money when they're in their job that they're in, or go to a job that, that's what I used to always say is if somebody gets rid of me in this job, I'm just going to go down the street and get a job somewhere else, because I already know what I'm doing. I know it. I have that confidence in me. And that's what I want to share with the Accelerator students, and I think that's where you're at too. I try to impart that on you, and look where you went with it. Look where you went with it, and you're not done yet. And so, so I guess I don't know where this was going, but I guess I wanted to have an opportunity to talk about why I did that collection. It fits with this Power BI thing.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about Accelerator a little bit, because I think there's a lot of people that don't understand what Accelerator does. It's a big deal.
It is. Sometimes people will ask us questions like, well, there's quite a bit to it. And why there's a lot to it is pretty much I sat and thought over months of time. If I was starting off Power Apps, whether I had any developer experience or not, what would I want? I want somebody to come beside me, take me by the hand, and lead me into my future in my career, in my Power Apps projects, in my learning, and all. We've got group calls. We've got, gee whiz. I mean, you go to the classroom. What type of modules do we have? Well, first of all these things are separate courses, okay? But if you go into the main Power Apps Accelerator, what do we have? Well, we got a whole module on planning and design. We got a whole module on SQL Server, APIs, Power Automate, Power BI. And yes, we brought in experts, some other experts to teach that, and not me and Kurt for that. That's what we do. We got a module on admin and governance and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something that might be considered controversial. I don't know. A lot of people believe a lot in the certificates and credentials and all that kind of stuff. I used to. Yeah. And I'm not trying to poo-poo the idea of doing that, because I believe that for some reason, for whatever reason, it's a big deal out there, and it gets you conversations, it gets you in the door, But I've worked with so many people that wanted. To me, people with certificates and stuff are trying to get a certificate. They're busy talking about it instead of just doing it, And I've worked with a lot of people out there that have certificates that couldn't program their way out of a wet paper bag. Although I've actually seen somebody just corrected me and said, I think it might have been Ben. I can't remember. Ben, if I said this and you didn't say it, I'm sorry, but we'll make it so that you made it profound. But they said, well, to be honest though, in defense of paper bags, they do hold a lot of variables. But I'm just saying that, that's what Accelerator does right now. Accelerator says, we're not going to be talking about it. We're going to be about it. Sometimes you got to quit talking about it and start being about it. And I want the programmers that go through Accelerator to be about it. We're not going to, I'm going to sit there. I saw this one person. I had this, well, I'm an MVP. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm like, okay.
Was that me that said that to you?
No, but it was, and that's a good deal. That's a good deal. That means you're contributing to the society of what we're doing here. But look, man, at some point you've got to go out there and be about something here. And so, just because you have that doesn't mean you can do it. I would rather see a person do it, and hopefully they've got that stuff. Did we just lose her again?
I think so. I'm going to email her back.
I was excited. I was trying to wind it up so she could get back on it. Anyway, I don't even know. I guess that's what we try to do. We just try to focus on an Accelerator. We try to focus on being about it,
I sort of want to show you guys, guys, I offer a lot of things that you guys might be interested in, and I offer them for free. I'm all about providing value without asking things in return. And I believe that's Kurt. I am an MVP, by the way.
You are.
I don't think that's a thing for me to brag about. I think it's an honor to be recognized by the community.
Right.
And by Microsoft. And so I sort of feel the opposite. I feel sort of humbled and thankful that
you do.
It's really about the people in the community. That's what being an MVP is about. And speaking of certifications, I've got so many certifications. I'd have to go look up my transcript to tell you all of the letters I could put behind my name. But I see others doing the same thing that I used to do, which is, I passed this exam, I got this certification, blah, blah, blah. And if somebody were to say that to me, like, yeah, I got a bunch of certifications too. What have you built? Where's your portfolio?
That's the goal.
And over years, I'm like, certifications are great, man. They give me interviews if I ever need an interview, but a portfolio will get you the interview and get you the job.
We talked about. Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't get asked what the second parameter of the filter function is.
I wish they would. I wish they would ask that, but I agree totally. And that's exactly, what? I got my first job. I was a self-taught. I never went to school for this stuff at first. I did go to school because for two reasons. Number one, I wanted to see if I was, what's the difference between me and being a professional programmer, But the other thing was that sometimes I had contracts where they said they required you to have a certain degree. So I had to keep going to school. But the point is though, I got my first job, the first real good job I had. Mm-hmm. I said, look guys, I've got 3 credit hours in college right now, well, what have you done? Oh, okay. What have I done? And I opened up my briefcase. This is back in the days when you had fan fold paper and the whole thing just went, just blew up in there, and they with paper.
Did you have a deck of cards with a rubber band around it with your code on the cards?
But it just goes to show you they didn't really care. In the end, they didn't care what I had as far as that. They wanted to know what I've done with programming. And when I showed them that, they hired me right then. They hired me right then and there, So the interview was over. They said, that's what we need. And But you know what? I don't want to poo-poo certificates and all that, because that oftentimes gets you in the door. It just does.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if Erin's. I do see some emails. She says I was in, just got kicked out again, and I think it's because of my town is on lunch now using it. Basically, it's dial-up, is what she said.
So if you could tell her one time real quick, just try it once without your camera and everything on. Just come in without your camera and see if that'll help.
Okay. I shall do that. And I think that I could probably text her here. Let me say, try to come in without showing your video. Yeah. Maybe that will. Can you please explain a little bit a little bit about building a portfolio and how? So we go over this in the accelerator quite a bit, and I stress it a lot. And it's actually really simple. You know what I do is, a lot of times I use Camtasia, which is a company that makes Snagit. They're called what's the name of the company? TechSmith, I think it is.
TechSmith, yeah, TechSmith.
Yeah. But you don't have to. I mean, I pay for that, but there's a free one out there called Loom. So I'm going to type this out. It's very simple. LOOM.com. Okay. You go there. It's free. You can download something. You can record your screen. What you want to do is you can use a web camera so your face can be on the screen. Okay. And you bring up your Power Apps application, whatever you're trying to show. It could be your Power BI reports. Okay. You make one video per app. Okay. Or per whatever you want to show. And you just work on a list of those. So you record it and you have a link to that. And, what I do is I upload those videos into YouTube. I create a playlist on YouTube. And when somebody wants to see my portfolio, I send them a YouTube link. Now, this isn't even this channel that you're watching this video on. This is like my personal one that I really don't release any videos on. I even made the, she says she's checking with her landlord. And I just created an unlisted playlist, and I've got like 10 or 15 different videos out there. And here she is. Yeah.
No camera. We can do this.
It's working without the camera. Okay, good deal.
Yeah. I'm like sending emails, stressed out, texting. I'm like, my internet's down. The whole town's
Erin,
on
the first time you do something new, like a live stream, if you go to my channel, click on live, go to my very first one. I was echoing bad for like 15 minutes. But you know what? It turned out to be one of like the top 5 most popular videos on my channel.
That's awesome. That's so funny. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I saw it. I was like, okay, let's try again, because it just kept spinning and spinning. But all right, let's pick this up, gentlemen.
So something I just wanted to address real quick. We had TG here on the live stream says, can you please explain a little bit about building a portfolio? Erin, do you use portfolio? Do you build portfolios, like showing off all your Power BI reports or whatever you've done on the Power Platform?
Okay, so the answer is yes and no. I'm a huge fan of building a portfolio. I think it's important. My work a lot of times is under NDA. So my best reports and like the hardcore stuff I'm doing is absolutely not something I could ever show.
Something would just take away from that portfolio if you show them this redacted thing, right? Everything's all this
right. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, exactly. It would be everything. And so I thought about that, because I was like, I need to build a portfolio of non-work work, if that makes sense, because just everything is NDA. I don't think I work at this point. Nothing I'm doing or I've worked on is like I just couldn't show my best work. So I need to make so do you know, it's funny you ask, because I've been thinking about this, and I actually, I don't want to say what my idea is right here, but I want to do like a series with a really cool data set and build a portfolio out that way. And that's one thing I would recommend is find an industry specific or something interesting that will catch people's attention to build a portfolio. So obviously, complicated,
Erin,
but
why don't we build that together?
okay.
Will be your portfolio, but me and Kurt could be a fly on the wall and ask questions as you're building it. Like right now, we're working with some public. What
Uh-huh.
do you call this? Public domain data right here. We could actually build. This could be my first report that I build. This could be part of mine, and it's no
1,000%.
NDA stuff, right?
And not to mention these days with the way things are with connectivity, this link right here could be a portfolio piece. Yeah, you can give this link. Like, look, I do that. I do training videos here. Here's an introduction one. You know,
that's a great point. Great way to look at it. Yeah, and so yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so many ways to look at your portfolio. It could be what you're producing from a media standpoint, content, writing. My portfolio now is like the pack books is part of that. Going, hey, technical editing, technical writing, you know, clients that you have. But I think it's good when you're going to build visible work that is not sensitive data, and there's tons of it out there. Let's do that together, because my idea is a little creative, actually, and I want to reach out to an industry that doesn't usually get attention in our space, but I think people would blow it up, and it would bring people in that don't normally think about, you know, Power Apps and Power BI and Power Automate. Like I've been trying to think, because I'm working with the Pack guys now on branding and how do you get people educated? And I was like, interesting data and interesting visualizations are an easy way, because they do directly tie to people's careers advancing if they can do the same thing. So teaching how to build some really cool apps or reports, like you guys do the apps, you know, I'm talking reports. It's important to have a portfolio.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is.
Well, I'm excited. So where do you see us for the rest of the live stream? What should we accomplish before we call the end of the session one here?
Okay, so let's set a reasonable amount of time to wrap up. I think this is, gosh, guys, this is scratching the tip of the iceberg. I wish now doing this, like maybe if we do it again, like driving and going through the demo succinctly, and you know, and then having the commentary, like we'll set it up, because I feel like, oh, I didn't even get to touch on this. Where I'd like to land, or where I wanted to land, was really starting with visualizations, but I feel like that could be another hour, if that makes sense. So
one of the things that I've learned over the years of teaching and doing these kinds of things is we tend to break off too big of chunks, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure that we get the oohs and ahs out there and people are impressed with what we're doing. But the problem with that is that we get so much that we can't get it done, you know? So maybe if we just, you know, consider this to be like, maybe this is a small series. Maybe we could call this a mini series. Maybe we could do 2 or 3 of these shows here in the next few weeks. Right. And we could say, okay, this is 1, you know, episode 1. Right. And then that way you can get it all. But and that's something that Darren, I try to impress, because Darren and I are always arguing about stuff. Right. And he loves to go in there with these great, big, epic things, you know, and we try to do this on a Saturday afternoon. It's like, Darren, you ain't going to get it done in 3 hours, man.
That's so funny. Yeah. Boil the ocean. You know, it's that love, though.
We have ADD too.
Well, and you got to remember, you got to allow people time for me to get in there and ask you to slow down a couple of times, so that people, because you've been doing this for a long time, so this is like second nature to you. So I want to be able to, you know, we need to be able to go in there and say, hey, let's go backwards a little bit and talk about this, and then we need to be able to go off all these little jumps, because that's what makes it interesting, right? When we can joke around a little bit and go off on some other stuff, sometimes that makes it interesting too. So we want to be able to do the whole show. Yeah.
Okay, so I think what we're saying is, let's keep going. This was hey, welcome. We want to introduce you to our friend Power Apps. And then maybe next time we do a quick review of connecting to data, the basics 101. No need for a real introduction, not much. And then we get to that next step. So we'll go from the Power Query Editor. I can kind of demo that quickly. And then we could dive into, let's visualize. Let's start storytelling and modeling. And hey, what about calculations? And I think you're right. Boiling the ocean is a temptation, but it really has to almost be segments.
Boiling the ocean.
Boiling the ocean. I love
good
that
stuff. Erin, I really like you. You know that?
That's good stuff. I like you guys too.
You are fun.
You're part of our tribe now.
She's part of the tribe. She's part of our tribe, Darren.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, guys. I need your tribe.
Erin, I don't know if you see what I have up here on the screen, but this is the outline we started together, and I think that you were we're developing it. So guys, this is everything that we were going to cover today in today's live stream. And I think we've done a lot of this. This is good, where we didn't do anything wrong. But I mean, okay, Power Query Editor, PQE, DAX.
Yep.
Yeah, storytelling, visuals. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in here. So that's what we were planning on doing today.
Yeah.
Epic.
Yeah, this is cool stuff. I just wanted to show that to everybody.
We were
getting there. We can blame rural internet, guys.
It is.
Blame my internet.
Yeah. We were going to boil the ocean, but we ended up just, trying to boil a pot of water.
But a pot never boils.
We're planning to build a desalination plant. That's really what we're doing. Can't boil the ocean. Bring it to us. Well, gentlemen, yeah, definitely. What I do is I can get you links for some of the stuff we talked about.
Okay.
Pricing. So it's going to be free, $10, $20, pro premium, but you have to work with your organization. I didn't want to speak too much about that.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little about the service. That's the online component. We really didn't touch it at all. The desktop where you develop. We got into transformations, which is the query editor portion. Lots to cover. I'm thinking we take this outline and just each big bullet point is a segment or something like that. And then, maybe that's more the path of how we do it. Because you're right. We want to show off what's really cool. I mean, I'm thinking I do dashboard in a day trainings and I customize them for mining companies. And it's like, it takes us 2 days, and to relate it. And that's just to cover the surface and show cool features, like you said.
That's right. And you know what? I don't want to be the same thing I complain about all the time. We go to these workshops and stuff like that, and you can't learn all this stuff in one day. You can't do it in a few hours. It's just too much information,
Right.
And so
how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah, one bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I would rather just ride the elephant. I've always wanted to do that. I hope it's a humane thing. I think they're treated nicely. I've always wanted to ride.
Well, now we're on this ADD trip here. This is funny, Yeah. Oh, no, we're going to talk about elephants because I got a great elephant story.
You know what I mean? Well, it's 2 hours in, this is about a lot of technical jumping, some disruptions. Pleasant conversation is bound to unravel at some point.
Do you remember what I said 15 minutes before this live stream? Our primary goal is to
have fun.
Yeah. And hopefully all you viewers that are viewing this either live or on demand, that you feel like you were on the fun as well, because you got to keep learning fun. Otherwise it gets tiring.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, how many things are boring? And it's like, why? It's interesting and exciting and it's valuable. Let's jump into it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kurt. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. So how should we wrap this up?
The song. You got one? No, I'm just kidding.
What was that?
Well, I was going to say, I can tell my elephant story.
Oh, you got one?
I can tell that joke.
No, I like all these things.
No, we're not telling, but I do have an elephant story, and it is crazy. It's true, and it's funny, really.
Absolutely. I vote yes.
So this was way back a long time ago, and we were taking the kids to the zoo, and it was actually the St. Louis Zoo. And man, I'm not kidding you, hands down, best zoo I've ever been to. And there was this elephant that was off to the side of all these other elephants. And there was a zookeeper there, and I'm walking through there, and I'm asking, what's going on here? How come you got this elephant separated? And it had this weird chain on its leg that had it looked like a little log. It was like maybe like a piece of firewood or something, maybe something that you and I could carry, right? And it was dangling from a chain that was dragging on the ground on this elephant's leg. And I'm like, what's that all about? And I said, well, what's going on? Well, this elephant was acting up, so we had to separate it from the herd. I said, oh, okay. I said, so what's keeping it from going back over to the herd? And she says, that log. And I said, that log can't stop anything from moving. That elephant's as big as my house, right. And there's no way that thing could take it. And it said that, and she said, elephants don't forget. They can't forget. So what happens is they train them when they're little. They put this log on them so that they can't move. And when they're attached to this log, they think they can't move. So they don't even try because they can't forget.
Oh my goodness!
it blew my mind. You know,
Yeah.
and isn't that so much true for us too? We
Wow.
forget that we can't do something, that we forget that we can actually keep on trying. Like for instance, I
Right.
remember being a little boy trying to learn how to bounce a basketball. I would try all day long, to get until I got that basketball. Now, if I try something new and I can't get it by the third time, I quit because I just can't do it, and it's because, we don't forget our failures, and that's exactly what an elephant does,
Yeah, that's so true. And it's like, it's amazing because it's so true how impactful those things are. And it's also amazing we have the opportunity to redefine what failure means.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't change the circumstance, but we can redefine the meaning of it. And it's like failure is a stepping stone. It's not just a cliche.
Yeah, I'm not going to be this elephant that's stuck to this log that I can ride around wherever I want to go.
It's challenging to think about that. I love your story.
Yeah.
It's good.
I thought that was going to be a joke.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm disappointed. Darren's disappointed.
What do you call a fish? What do you call a fish with no eyes?
Did Ben get it? Because he said cod nose, and I thought that was cute. I don't know.
The answer is fish.
I don't get it, Ben. What's cod nose?
Like God knows, like you don't know what to call it. That's what I thought. Cod knows.
Oh, okay.
Oh, old fish. Wait, a fish. What's
fish? No eyes.
Because it's just FHS, so it's fish.
That's my best dad joke. I can tell you.
I mean, I don't know what it says about me. I was like slow to grab it for a second, so I like it. I think you need a picture of a fish when that's happening.
So do you guys know when you have a flock of geese, why that V, when there's a V in the flock of geese, one side is longer than the other? Do you know the reason why that's the case?
No.
One side has more geese in it.
One side has more what?
One side has more geese in it.
I like the logic. I feel like that's math right there. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys know that chickens can fly, right? But why don't they fly, Darren?
They're chicken.
Why?
Because they're chicken.
Oh my goodness, guys. You guys are real dads, aren't you?
We're it's silly, isn't it?
Erin, you're gonna have to bring us home on this.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, okay. Y'all, thank you for a wonderful time together. We have had a crash course introduction to the beginning of Power BI for Power Apps users. We're going to keep focusing and growing together. We've had fun and we're grateful. I think that's where we're landing. And we've got jokes for days. And I'm going to shout out to Ben here, who's old fish versus gold fishing in the comments. Like, he's got funny stuff. I thought he had the answer. So appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Next
now,
time,
Erin, what's the burning question in your mind right now?
What do we do next? Yeah, what's next?
What video do you watch next, right? For some reason, YouTube thinks you're going to like this video next. Let's see if they're right. Or you can select this playlist, which I've selected for you based on the content you're currently watching. Guys, got to hurry. Click one of them. Otherwise, YouTube's going to autoplay some other video, which you probably don't want.